And now, Move the Sticks, the Divisional Round, with Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, and Rhett Lewis.
Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to the Move the Sticks Takeaway podcast following a terrific divisional round weekend in the playoffs. Rhett Lewis here in studio with Bucky Brooks. DJ is on his way to Tampa for the East-West Shrine Game as it is championship week now in the NFL. It is all-star season in college football. DJ and Andrew Siciliano getting ready for the East-West Shrine Game this Saturday. And then Bucky and I in the nightcap this coming Saturday.
How about that?
From the Rose Bowl. We'll take the baton for the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. So we're excited for that. They'll have practices this week that we're going to be at. We'll actually tape our next podcast from the Wednesday practice at the NFLPA game practice at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. So we're excited for that. But of course, we today are taking a look back at the divisional round of the playoffs. We also saw the final head coaching piece put into place by the Cleveland Browns, hiring offensive coordinator from the Vikings, Kevin Stefanski. Quick reacts on that before we get into the divisional round takeaways here, Buck?
Well, I'm not surprised by the Kevin Stefanski hire. If you hear the conversation coming out of the last go-round, that he interviewed very, very well, and he had impressed a number of the people in the front office.
Finalist last year.
He was a finalist last year, so I'm not necessarily surprised. And then when you begin to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together and how the Browns are kind of reportedly wanting to move to a more analytical base thing, Kevin Stefanski being a Penn graduate, Paul DePodesta being a Harvard graduate, and their proposed GM Andrew Berry also being a Harvard graduate, it would appear to work. I have some questions about how you can put all of those pieces of the puzzle together while also changing the culture. But that's something that Kevin Stefanski can address at his initial press conference, and then we'll see how it plays out. Yeah,
we'll get into that. Who's he going to bring along for his staff will be interesting as well. Guys that are going to be in that frame of mind with an analytics background. And then, of course, that leaves a hole for the Vikings to fill, perhaps by Gary Kubiak to jump into the OC role there in Minnesota. They're also moving on from their defensive coordinator, George Edwards, there in Minnesota as well. So kind of a fresh start at the upper levels of the Vikings coaching staff there after their loss to the 49ers.
Yeah, like they're kind of at a crossroads right now, the Minnesota Vikings, not only with the coaching staff. You alluded to, like Kevin Stefanski moves, that probably means Gary Kubiak comes down and takes over as offensive coordinator. George Edwards' contract wasn't renewed, so now Mike Zimmer has to figure out how does he want to handle the defensive coordinator position. He is the guy that calls plays.
Right.
So
it's not a huge deal, right?
Who is the guy that's going to carry the title and do all the stuff that kind of takes place behind the scenes. And then they got to make some decisions on players. Everson Griffin and some of their other players are up.
Kirk Cousins in the last year of his deal now next season.
So how do they want to go forward? And this is a team that has done, they've kind of done it all. We've seen them go to the championship game. We've seen them bow out early. We've seen them get to the division round, which they did against the 49ers, that just haven't been able to get over the hump. So major decisions. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's something going on with their general manager, Rick Spielman. Maybe his deal is coming up. Maybe he's about to enter the last year of it. So a lot of conversations that need to be had with their front office in terms of what the future looks like.
And we'll get into that Vikings 49ers game here shortly, but let's begin our divisional round takeaways with the wild and wacky and one of the most crazy comeback games we've ever seen in the postseason. The Chiefs versus the Texans. Bucky, get us started with the Chiefs side.
Chiefs start slow, but finish fast.
First down, goal to go for the Chiefs, leading 41-31. We have played 1 minute and 3 seconds in the fourth quarter. Big action fake, left side throw, touchdown, Kansas City. Blake Bell has never had a touchdown in his 5-year NFL career, either in the regular season. This is his first postseason game.
Wow, that was exciting for Blake Bell.
Yeah, but also Travis Kelce caught 3, right?
Travis Kelce. So here's my takeaway from the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's the one thing that I've worried about, having played in that stadium, having been a part of the Chiefs, having had the number 1 seed in home field. When you play a home playoff game and you're the favorite, and you may be a prohibitive favorite, there's a lot of pressure that can kind of seep in to the sideline that can affect you. With the Kansas City Chiefs, the one thing that I was worried about is not necessarily them coming off the bye week, but they have so many young players. How do they quickly adjust to the playoff environment and atmosphere when you had a week off? Meanwhile, the Houston Texans have kind of gotten battle tested because they had that overtime win against the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
And I think what we saw in the opening quarter, we saw all of the nerves kind of play out. They had uncharacteristic drops.
Yep.
They had bad plays. They had turnovers. Tyreek Hill muffed a punt. All of the things that we really haven't seen from this team, it kind of played out in that first 15 minutes. Their saving grace, and what will always be their saving grace, is they have an offense that is, it's like a video game offense. Like when they get to rolling, when that offense kind of catches fire, they can score points in bunches. And the fact that they scored, was it 41 straight?
Oh, yeah, 41 unanswered.
Unanswered points after that. That is that's stuff that you can't even think about an NFL offense being able to do. And so when people make the comparison, and I've likened them to the Golden State Warriors of the most recent years where, man, when the three ball starts going, when they get hot, they can run you out the stadium, and that's what we saw happen to the Houston Texans.
2 MVPs in this game for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm not talking about Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or even Damian Williams. Daniel Sorensen and Mecole Hardman in this game, because it was about stemming the tide. They needed to make some plays to stem the tide that the Texans had built in that lead. So it started with Daniel Sorensen, and it started before the Mecole Hardman return, because Sorensen tackled Duke Johnson a yard shy of a first down on 3rd and 9. They got 8 yards, brought up a 4th and 1. This is when they were up 21-0, deep in Chiefs territory. Bill O'Brien wanted to go for it.
Yeah.
Tried to go for it. They didn't get the right personnel or didn't have the right play. Something got screwed up. So he called the timeout. They ended up having to kick the field goal. They're up 24-0, right? So then Mecole Hardman comes in. They needed a spark. Ensuing kickoff after the field goal, he goes 58 yards right there. And now it's like, all right, this is more like us. We're the Chiefs. This is what happens. We're exposed. 2 plays, 59 seconds later, touchdown one's on the board.
You know, the juice. Like it is so funny because I think what we saw all weekend, the emotional ebbs and flows in playoff games are different in the regular season. Like the highs are so high and the lows are so low. And sometimes if you don't have a mature enough team to navigate through it, you can find yourself on the short end of the stick. For the Kansas City Chiefs, they were kind of in a desperate situation when they kick off to Mecole Hardman because they had tried to put Tyreek Hill in. That kind of speaks to
that was the desperation. They'd only done it one other time before that on the punt return.
On the punt return. They sneak him in for the punt return because he's the designated hitter. He's the big play threat. We're going to put him back there because we need a spark. He muffs it. That's when we see them kind of run out. Mecole Hardman, the Pro Bowl returner who had done it all year, comes back and he breaks off a big return, and you can feel the energy. And then when they score in 2 plays, and now it's the snowball effect of, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Here they come.
Defense is feeling it. They force a 3 and out on the next Texans offensive possession. Then the Texans try the fake punt on 4th down. You know what? I didn't hate it. I didn't hate the call.
But look, and I will say this. Sorensen again.
There it is.
One-on-one tackle against Justin Reed. Gets him down. Great tackle. Because any other situation, I'm like, man, one-on-one, that's what you live for in the National Football League.
Go make a play. 4 yards, go make a play.
Go make a play.
Make one miss and go.
And it wasn't obvious. I do understand what Bill O'Brien said. Bill O'Brien said he felt like he had to get out of the stadium with 50 points to get a win.
Yeah.
And so he was
technically
aggressive.
52.
Yeah.
He would have needed
uber aggressive in times of going for it. But that stop, and once they got that stop, I was like, uh-oh. And you could just kind of feel it going. And once that offense got to rolling, made it tough.
So that was the fake punt. Sorensen comes up with the biggest tackle of the game right there. Because if you felt like if Houston converted, maybe they stem the tide. Yeah, maybe that's the play that does it, right?
Trying to slow it down because when you're looking at that game, I think the one thing that you notice very early, Houston was playing very deliberate and slow. Yeah. They were taking the play clock down to under 5 seconds on each snap. They were trying to shorten the game, shrink the game, and really put the pressure back on Kansas City's offense to feel the heat of having to score and having to chase points. And that play stemmed the tide, gave Kansas City another opportunity to go score. And then once they closed
23 seconds later, they scored, Bucky, their second touchdown.
And once they closed it to within 14-10? No,
it was
10.
24-14 at that point.
And you could feel them. And then I'm looking at the clock at the end of the second half, end of the second quarter saying, man, if Houston doesn't have a drive here, because Kansas City got the ball coming back out of the second half.
In the ensuing kickoff, Sorensen forced another fumble. And then it was 24-21. And you're like, it's more than a run by the Chiefs. It's, now we're running up the score.
Yeah, now you're in trouble.
Right?
And so as well as it played out for the Houston Texans in the first quarter, everything,
complete script.
I mean, they lose everything, all the momentum, all the advantages before you even get into halftime. Yeah. And then with Kansas City getting the ball out, you just knew they were going to dial it up. And at that point, it was a runaway.
So let's just finish the thought here on this game with the Texans side of things. I have never seen a game where special teams had such a huge impact, both positively and negatively, on a team's fortunes in a game.
Texans about to get it back. Butker to kick off from our left to right. He's going to try to hang this one short. Here's Carter at the 1 yard line. Straight ahead. 5, 10, 15. Cuts right 20. And the ball is out. And the Chiefs got it. Thompson running left inside the 10. And he's down to the 8 yard line. Oh my goodness. Darwin Thompson, a running back, had the ball pop right into his hands. And the Chiefs have a first and goal.
Goodness gracious. And that's where it really came apart at the seams for the Texans. So let's go through the special teams day for the Texans here. They start with the block punt score, second touchdown of the game for the Texans. They're up 14-0. You're like, now Cam Cameron once told me, you block a punt more times than not. I mean, almost like 9 times out of 10, you're going to win the football game. That's what kind of impact a block punt, especially return for a score, has on your team. It's such a momentum changer, right? Okay, then the Texans recover the muffed punt on the next Chiefs possession on the Tyreek Hill muff, and they're up 21-0. But it's special teams that then lets them down. You're up 24-0 on the ensuing kick. You're on the verge of shutting the door. You can't let the light in. You can't leave a crack in the door. And the return by Hardman was that little bit of light that the Chiefs needed. We talked about it. Then you get the tackle on the fake punt. You can't convert on the fake punt opportunity on 4th and 4. Then they force the fumble on the kickoff. The Chiefs do. And you're starting to see all of the positivity that the Texans had built on special teams turn into negativity. It's like the Texans were watching their first quarter performance in the mirror, but it was like Inception, and it was actually their nightmare that was unfolding, not the Chiefs. I have never seen, this game was won, lost, and then won again by the Chiefs on special teams. That's nuts. As a coach, I'm sure you can appreciate that.
No, it is nutty how it unraveled. And I think it was kind of the theme of the weekend. The underrated part of team building, the special teams, played a major role in each of these games. We saw muff punts, we saw fumbles, we saw block punts.
Yes.
We saw critical plays from the special teams. And, I think it's one of those things where you really have to pay attention to the details when we get into the playoffs, because those little things matter. For the Houston Texans, it started out the way that you want to start out on, especially. I mean, to block a punt early in the game, to make plays, to have the things occur. I mean, you not only get the block punt, but you get the muff punt. You get 2 turnovers.
And that led to 2 touchdowns.
In special teams, right out the gate. And then, they give one back. And the one they gave back on the kickoff return was significant because it just added juice to the stadium.
It's the cherry on top, man.
I mean, it's one of those things, and it's one of those things, like, as a returner, you try not to cloud and clutter their minds, but sometimes you're like, hey, man, just look, if we just can retain possession of the ball, that is a win for us.
Yeah.
Don't try and make the big play.
Quickly here before we get to the Titans-Ravens game, let's close the book on the Texans. I feel like the one thing that they've got to rein in is the thing we both love to see, and then also it's the love-hate relationship with the Deshaun Watson magic in the pocket, kind of running around crazy-like, almost like chicken with a head cut off, not really with any sort of direction, but just trying to escape and make a play. They've got to figure out how to get the ball out of his hands a little quicker.
Yeah, I hate their offense. I love him. I love Deshaun Watson as a player.
So do I. Let's make that clear.
And I think he's special.
Just a little too much of that, right?
I just don't like the design of their offense. I don't like anything about like what it does. I would love to see him in an offense that appeared to have a little more structure.
Yeah, and I want to go back, Buck, and I want to go back this season. I want to watch all of his passing attempts here and see how many times that there was a guy he maybe should have gone to quicker before. Is it truly like, all right, let's take 3 instead of look for 30? Are they running into that sort of thing too often? I'd love to go back and look at that.
I think that's one of the all-season projects that Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson will have to kind of figure out, like, what's the best way for this offense to run? What's the best way for it to flow? I really don't like the structure. I feel like there's a difference. So when I look at Matt LaFleur or I look at Kyle Shanahan, I feel like there's a sequential nature to the way that they call plays. You feel like certain plays complement one another. They're built off of that. So, hey, we run this. Now the pass is that. When I look at the Houston Texans, I don't get that same kind of flow and feel to their offense. Like, I feel like they call a lot of different plays, but I don't feel like they all match or they complement one another. So it's hard for me to see this offense get in a rhythm because I think it's a non-rhythmic offense. It just strikes me as Cheesecake Factory menu.
It felt huge. It felt like the Aaron Rodgers very tail end of the McCarthy era offense. Like, all right, Aaron, go make a play. Go run around for 6 seconds and try to
and we'll talk about another team that has an offense that's like that. I feel like Seattle has a little bit of that at the end. It's kind of chaotic.
Especially the last 6 or 7 weeks, and we'll get into that as well. All right, let's get to the Titans and Ravens. Bucky, you want to hit us with the Titans to start?
Beat them up with the running game.
Tannehill in the gun. Motions Smith across the formation. Henry breaks a tackle. 30. Henry 40. Henry 50. Henry 40. Henry 30. Henry 20. Henry 10. Henry down at the 8-yard line as he is tackled by Peters.
Okay, so Rhett, like when I looked at the Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens, the first thing that came to mind when I watched them as this game played out, it kind of took me back to boxing. And in boxing, you have different weight classes. And there's a reason why you don't put heavyweights in the ring with middleweights and cruiserweights. Derrick Henry is a heavyweight.
Yes.
Those little DBs for the Baltimore Ravens are a bunch of flyweights.
Yes.
And what you saw in this game as it played out, when he gets to the next level, when he gets to the second level of the defense, the linebacker DBs, there are people that really don't want to tackle him. And their inability or lack of desire to throw their head in there to mix it up with him leads to these explosive plays. For the second weekend in a row, we have seen Derrick Henry go for 175-plus yards. We've seen him run 30-plus times. And the common denominator in each of those games, by the second quarter, third, the DBs want nothing to do with coming
and
up.
Honestly, I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
I mean, you're talking about it. Look,
that's why I played offense.
I know they have him listed at 235. He's 250.
Fine.
He's 250 pounds. He runs at a 4.5 level, and it is just it's cold. It hurts, and he's just bigger and stronger. Yes. And what the Tennessee Titans have figured out is they make you play in a phone booth. They make you have to deal with him, and that has been their advantage. And so hats off, because at a time when everyone in the league were building these defenses that were predicated on light pass rushers, run and chase linebackers, swift DBs, they're like, hey, that's all well and good, but we don't throw it enough. You're going to have to tackle him. And you're seeing the advantages that the Tennessee Titans and some of the other teams that we'll talk about have created.
So this is what I love here. Let's think about this in the scheme of what the Titans have now done in the postseason. You've knocked off 2 blue bloods of the AFC playoff scene in this century on the road in back-to-back weeks in the Patriots and now the Ravens. And your quarterback doesn't even have to throw for more than 90 yards in each of those games. That means you have had the most dominant run game ever in the NFL postseason. And the numbers kind of bear that out. Henry becomes the first player in NFL history to have back-to-back games of 180-plus rushing yards in a single postseason. And they are committed to giving him the football. Clearly, Ryan Tannehill now joins a party of, what was previously one with Terry Bradshaw as the only players in the Super Bowl era to win consecutive playoff games with a passing touchdown and fewer than 100 passing yards. They just didn't need it. They didn't need.
How about that?
Now,
Terry Bradshaw, the legendary
TV,
Steelers
Hall of Famer.
How about that?
So here's the other thing, though. If the Texans went up 24-0 on the Titans, I think it might have been game over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if Kansas City gets up,
that's
trouble. We'll get to that, right?
So that is the thing with all of these teams. Like when you talk about the Tennessee Titans and their path to victory, you've seen it because you're an Indiana Hoosiers fan, and when Indiana has been at their best, let's think about like them playing the old Bo Ryan Wisconsin teams.
Yeah,
and it's very similar to me watching Carolina, like the good Carolina, not Carolina this year, but the good Carolina play UVA. When you watch those games, it's a 7-point lead in basketball, but it seems like they're up 20 points because of you're like, my gosh, will you just shoot the ball? Like they just hold on to it and the clock drains. And what the Tennessee Titans have been able to do is they've been able to dictate the terms in each of these games. Shorten the game, run the ball, run the clock out, put immense pressure on the other team's offense to have to score at all times. So it takes them out of their customary one-dimensional approach and makes them uncomfortable. And so it is one of those things that when we talk about the Baltimore side, this tactic played a big part in why I believe Greg Roman and Lamar Jackson and those guys had to panic, because I think what Greg Roman is looking at, man, they're draining the clock. If we don't score quickly, we're not going to have enough time. And that makes you abandon what has been so good for you.
And I think, I know you're going to touch on that as we look ahead to the AFC Championship game here in just a second. But first, let's close the book on the Ravens, who played in a game here against the Titans in the divisional round and accumulated 530 yards of total offense. But I have never seen 530 yards of total offense mean so little.
Lamar Jackson under center. He's going to keep it here. Good think. Gus Edwards in the backfield. Jackson keeps it, runs to the right, nothing there, runs to the left, nothing there. He's bottled up, stretches forward, and the Titans stop him on 4th and 1. And for a second time tonight, the Ravens are stopped on 4th and 1.
Lamar Jackson ran 530 yards. Did I say that again? 530 total yards against a good Titans defense. He ran for 140, threw for 350. They should have scored 50 points. Like that's what a normal Lamar Jackson type of output would have garnered the Ravens on the scoreboard. They scored 12. Now look, this is not an indictment on Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, and I don't even want to get into that whole thing because I don't feel like that is the storyline here. But they were 0 for 4 on 4th down.
Yeah, this
was the best 4th down team in football this year in terms of conversion percentages on 4th down. They were converting 70% of the time.
Yeah.
You go back and you want to look at the box score and say, like, oh my God, 530 yards. They won the time of possession. They converted 11 of 19 third downs. But yes, they turned the ball over on downs 4 times.
So that's 7 turnovers in a game.
Right, in addition to the 3 turnovers they had with the interceptions. 3
live ball turnovers and then 4 turnovers on downs. That's 7 turnovers. It is hard to win when you turn the ball over that way. And I think some people will take the Baltimore Ravens to task for maybe their approach or whatever. But here's what I will say, and I think it's been under-discussed. It hasn't been discussed enough. Not only about Derrick Henry, but when they signed Jeffrey Simmons, when they drafted Jeffrey Simmons 19 overall, a guy that we had talked about being potentially a top 5 pick, top 10 pick, whatever, a dominant player, one of the best players we've seen. They signed him and they shelved him. He has come back. I want to say, Rhett, they are 7-2 since he has kind of joined the team on this side.
Yeah.
And I think in that game, what we saw, the trenches, they dominated the line of scrimmage. Jarrell Casey, Simmons, those guys, they made big plays in that. And for the first time, I believe the Baltimore Ravens, we saw the bully get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
And the bully didn't respond well. And so that's the key to the game. They won up front. They beat them up front.
They were Ravens 1 for 4 in the red zone. Logan Ryan after the game said they threw 8-9 men in the box all day long. And he called it. He was like, it was like the old Engage 8 defense on Madden. Like you're just dialing up, engage 8, send everybody, sell out to stop the run. That's what they were doing in the passing game. They had a bunch of big drops. I think this again just kind of proves that they need one more piece. They need another consistent piece on the perimeter. The tight ends are good. That you could use a consistent chains mover if Andrews isn't available. You know what I mean?
And I think it's that, but I think it's also like what I would call is better discipline.
Sure.
And not only discipline from the players, but attention to discipline and detail from the coaching staff. There's a path to victory for the Baltimore Ravens. Everyone understands what that path is. The path to victory for them is run it, throw play action. That's how they win.
It is.
When they get into a traditional drop back passing game, it doesn't play well for them. But their path to success is very similar to the LA Rams' path to success. Right. When Jared Goff gets into a situation where he has to throw off traditional drop back passes without the threat of play action.
5 steps. So
he's not the same quarterback. And so you have to remain disciplined enough to be like, even though this game may be out of pocket, we're going to stick to it and we're going to say, defense, you got to bring us back. You can't get into a throw it game with a quarterback who, look, man, I love Lamar Jackson as much as anybody, but Lamar Jackson, even at Louisville, doesn't throw the ball well outside the numbers. Anything outside the numbers, like he struggles with. And so when they get in a situation where they're forcing him to make those throws, it doesn't play out well for him.
Right. All right, so let's take a quick look ahead at the AFC Championship game. We'll go Titans and Chiefs, the 6 seed versus the 2 seed. It's at Arrowhead. Bucky, what do we got?
Can the Titans control the tempo? That is really what it comes down to. It comes down to controlling the pace of the game. And the best way they can control the pace is running the ball and having success, grinding it out, and really shortening the game by doing that. Like this strategy, what we call turtle.
Yeah.
Turtle strategy is playing really, really slow. When I was with the Carolina Panthers, John Fox was the head coach. We were playing the greatest show on turf. The LA Rams had obliterated everybody. Yeah. We played them on the road in the division round. And what Foxy had said coming into the game, we want to make this a game where there are only 12 total possessions, period. So the goal was to tell Jake Delhomme before every snap, do not snap the ball until the play clock hits 5. And the goal is, hey, let's see if we can just take this into the fourth quarter to make an offensive team, a prolific offensive team, feel the pressure of having to score because they never played in those games. So when you think about the Kansas City Chiefs and we look at how they've been able to play, they typically get you out of the building early.
Yeah.
So if I'm Tennessee, it's the same thing that they've done with the Baltimore Ravens. Take the ball on the kickoff, slow it down, establish Derrick Henry. You're going to have to throw a pass early. It's important for them to jump out and get a score.
Yeah.
So then they can dictate it. But it's all about the tempo and the pace of the game.
The problem, though, is even if the Titans shorten the game, the Chiefs only need 20 minutes of TOP to score 50 points. They scored 4 touchdowns in 10 minutes of time. Like, you want to pressure a team to score quickly? Like, that's what the Chiefs do. They're built on scoring quickly. Like, I don't know. In the way they're playing now, and the way after seeing them play against this Texas team, I'm just like, man.
The only thing that makes me worry about the Kansas City Chiefs, defensively, they still didn't look great.
Yeah.
Despite all the stuff that they'd done down the end, they didn't look great. And I just wondered. Now, I know they didn't have Chris Jones in this last game.
Maybe they get him back.
I wonder, can they hold up against a very physical run game? And I think these teams, Nabil,
yes, in the regular season, Tennessee won.
Tennessee won with a great rally.
Yeah.
Tennessee was down.
Yes.
Came back, got an onside kick, then went down and scored. So there's a level of confidence that Tennessee's going to come in.
Kind of keep their second half of the season run.
Yeah, and I think like if you go all the way back with Vrabel and how they used to do things with the Patriots or whatever, they're going to take away what the Kansas City Chiefs do. I would expect them to take away the deep ball and to see if they can test Pat Mahomes' patience and see if they can make him become a surgical passer on the underneath.
I think of all right, say the Titans score in 6 minutes every time. the Chiefs can score in 60 seconds. Like that's they can, but will they?
They can, will they? So look, it's a mix of Princeton basketball pace and using the Syracuse 2-3 zone, and see if they can kind of slow it down and make them take jump shots and make them kind of nickel and dime it all the way down the field without turnovers.
So as much as it is about tempo, for me, it's also about stops and forcing field goals by the Tennessee Titans defense. All right, let's switch to the NFC here. We'll go back to Saturday, take a look at the Vikings and the 49ers. And for me, watching this game, it was all about the 49ers and their strengths showing up.
Trey Waynes tried to run off the field. Now he runs back on the field. They have enough players on the field. They have 7 straight 49er runs. They're going to give it to Coleman on the shotgun run for an 8th consecutive run. Touchdown! San Francisco!
Feels great, baby!
Just running all over them.
That really feels good, the way the offensive line just dominated that series. And to finish it off the way that they just did, punch it in with Tevin Coleman.
Man, that was impressive. Offensively, defensively, even on special teams, the 49ers just dominated this game. I never felt like the Vikings were really in it, even though it was close in the first half. I loved the line from Kyle Shanahan in the locker room after the win. He's got everybody around him. He's like, hey, we set a goal. We wanted to get 30 runs in this game. We got 47. They had 10. They had 10 runs compared to the 49ers' 47. They controlled the game. And this Tevin Coleman was the hot hand in this one, 105 yards. Raheem Mostert contributed on special teams. They sacked and harassed Kirk Cousins all day long then with the pass rush. So their two strengths to me, the biggest strength, run game and pass rush. Run game and pass rush. Each of the 49ers' vaunted first-round picks on that defensive line had a sack. Bosa had 2. Solomon Thomas, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Dee Ford, in his return from injury, they all had a sack.
Yeah, no, the San Francisco 49ers.
Play the hits. They did.
To me, they are built the right way. And the reason why I say they're built the right way, look, their defensive line is stellar. We talked about the 5 first-round picks that they have on that defensive line. They can control the game in the trenches, which is what they were able to do. But then the way they are built on offense, they're really deceptive, right? Because a lot of the attention, we talk about the running game, and then we talk about Jimmy G. And I think people kind of make the mistake of thinking because you have a franchise quarterback, you want to overuse him.
Yeah.
But I think what the San Francisco 49ers do is they do a great job of throwing early, running late. That first drive. So what did we see the first drive from the San Francisco 49ers? Five or six or something like coming down. And so what we did is very early in the game, they kind of stun you with slant, play action, boom, 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 touchdown. So now you go to the sideline, you talk to the D coordinator, and D coordinator says, we got to stop the pass, whatever. And then they come back, and we never saw it again.
Yeah.
We never saw them spread it out and attack the Vikings like that again. They come right back. They get back to their 2-back sets. They're running the stretch play over and over and over and over again, and they're having success. And it is really the great trick to hear Kyle Shanahan talk about, we got to get to 30 carries. Well, when we talk about the importance of the run game allows you to control the game, and he wants to be in control of the game and set the table for Jimmy Garoppolo to take shots. Jimmy Garoppolo needs to be on a pitch count when he's at his best. 25 to 27 throws. If he's fewer than that, great. If he does over that, they're not in the kind of game that they want to win.
Yeah, and I think we'll see again. We get another rematch, and then we'll get into the NFC Championship Game look ahead here in just a second. But why don't you close the book on the Vikings for us?
Vikings offense couldn't get it going.
Minnesota 2 of 8 on 3rd down. This is 3rd and 8 from their own 36. Diggs and Thielen left. Stephon is slot left. BC wide right. 3rd down, Cousins, shotgun, steps away from the pressure for now, but then he's mugged, and he's taken down by Nick Bosa. At the 28-yard line, loss of 7. Nick Bosa sacked Kirk Cousins. Vikings go 3 and out. They're down by 17. 13 minutes to go in the game.
Look, this was a game where I thought these teams were built alike. When you watch the way they play, they're very similar to how they do it. This is the same run scheme, same pass scheme. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan had worked for Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak had worked for his dad, Mike Shanahan. So there are there's a lot of similarities in terms of how they approach it. In this game, the Minnesota Vikings heading in, when they had played at their best, it's because Dalvin Cook had played really, really well. The fact that Dalvin Cook only had 9 rush attempts, that's an indictment on the game plan. I don't care if they're stopping him or not. He has to get his attempts. He is the key to being able to set the table for Kirk Cousins to be able to get open. But at the end of the day, they couldn't win the line of scrimmage, so they couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't control it with play action because the pass rush was too fierce. And then on the outside, I love Thielen and Diggs. They didn't win. These are two of the best route runners that I've seen, two best outstanding playmakers. I think they're the best 1-2 punch on the perimeter when it comes to their skills. Mm-hmm. However, in this game, they didn't consistently get open. And until they're able to get open, and I think the Minnesota Vikings have enough weapons. They have 2 tight ends. They got those 2 wide receivers. They got a playmaker in Dalvin Cook. They got a quarterback. I mean, they have everything. But this is one where they have to be able to score points. I do wonder, and I made mention of this on Twitter, Kevin Stefanski interviewed on Thursday. And people won't talk about it, but how focused can you be on a Saturday game when you interview for a head job on Thursday? Rhett, you and I have interviewed for jobs in this arena. Yeah. You understand the preparation that is necessary to have an outstanding interview on a Thursday. Sure. So how can you split your brain to be focused on the game that's on Saturday while, hey, I got to call, I got to make sure I get my staff together because they ask you who's on your staff, what's your philosophy, I got to get my books, hey, we got to get the Kinko. Right. All of those things, you got to get all that stuff together to get on the plane and go. I just wonder if we asked him in a few years, was that your best mental effort in terms of being able to come into the stadium and really focus in on here's the best approach for us to take against the 49ers?
Maybe. And I don't know when Robert Saleh interviewed, but he did all right. He did all right. Because he did also interview for the Cleveland Browns job as well. And that was kind of interesting to see that play out. And Stefanski be the one that gets the job. Clearly, they weren't judging it off one game.
No. The guys who have an advantage are the ones who are out early.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, early.
No question.
So you can go. It's hard for someone to be in the playoffs and on a deep run and get a job unless you have an owner who is, this is my guy, and I'm waiting.
Yeah. Fine. And you don't always see that. All right, let's get to the final game of the divisional weekend. That was the Seahawks and the Packers. Bucky, lead us off with the Packers.
Rodgers has just enough magic to make the Packers dangerous.
Rodgers under center, single back offense. Jones the lone back, fake to Jones. Rodgers deep drop looking. Pops it over the left side. Devontae wide open. Outside the numbers 20. Cuts it back right past Flowers. 10 to the 5 to the end zone. High stepping. Touchdown. Devontae Adams. 40 yards.
Hey, this is what Matt LaFleur's vision was for the Green Bay Packers. We talked about it with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's kind of like the continuing theme. The theme of the playoffs is to have a franchise quarterback that is kind of behind the glass. I can break him out if I need him. Aaron Rodgers.
Break glass if emergency.
In emergency. Yeah. If we need him to play at a high level, they can do that. Aaron Rodgers only had 27 attempts. I think in looking at Aaron Rodgers over his career, that would be a small number based on how we view him as one of the greatest quarterbacks that has played in NFL history. But because Matt LaFleur was committed to the ground game and because they were disciplined enough and patient enough to stay with the run, they didn't need to overburden Aaron Rodgers with a tremendous amount of throws. He had a connection going with Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, 8 receptions, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. But when they needed him, they could hand him the ball in that drive. And they knew that they could not give the ball back to the Seahawks because I firmly believe that if Russell Wilson got the ball back, they were going to go score. Yeah. He was going to find a way. They were beginning to get it clicking. Yeah. He was going to go score.
Surprised they didn't go for it.
It was 4th and 11, though. It's 4th and 11. It's so far that
and they had all 3 timeouts. I get
they had 3 plus the 2 minutes. That's the only reason why I was like,
all right, fine.
But then even in that, they got the Packers to 2 3rd and 8 situations. You have to get off the field. And that is what Aaron Rodgers. That throw that he hit Devontae Adams, straight dime. I mean,
unbelievable.
Straight dime, right over the shoulder, bang. And then to come back and hit Jimmy Graham on an under route. Look, it's terrific. It's exactly what they need. Now, for the Green Bay Packers going forward, for them to win going forward, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to dust it off one more time. He's going to have to dust off the cape. He's going to have to be the discount double-check guy for them to do it, because I don't know if they can play conservatively against the 49ers and get it done. But against the Seattle Seahawks, he had enough magic to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The connection, as you mentioned, with Davante Adams, I thought was huge, and I think will be the key moving forward here. Connection that Rodgers said afterwards was unspoken. Reminded him of the connection he had with Jordy Nelson in their heyday, which is, each guy knew exactly what the other guy wanted from him, whether they had the play called or they had to adjust mid-route, based on the coverage that they were being given. That connection makes them dangerous moving forward. But does Davante Adams, can he get past Richard Sherman? Can they find ways to get open in a very quick period of time, because they're going to get a mean pass rush from the Niners? I'll get into that here in just a little bit. Let's close the book on the Seahawks here. I just felt like, and this is kind of a poor play on words, but the Seahawks run dry.
Trip sent near side. Rodgers from the shotgun with Jones in the backfield. Rodgers awaits the snap. He takes it. Here comes the blitz. Rodgers steps, throws over the middle. Jimmy Graham makes the catch, and he's going to have a first down. At the 35-yard line, Lano Hill made the tackle, but I think they got the spot just across the line to make. They needed 9. They got 10.
Seattle calls its third and final timeout.
And Seattle uses its last timeout.
Yeah, say what you want about how they determined whether that was a first down or not from Jimmy Graham. Poetic justice, if you will, former Seahawk, the Packer that basically ends their run here.
He made 2 big plays.
Yeah, he made 2 big plays in this game. But the run that I'm talking about is their playoff run runs dry, as their run game had started to run dry the final quarter of the season. Remember, this team lost 3 of 4 going into the playoffs. Yes, they won in Philly against a beat-up Eagles team, but they found a way to win that game. We give them that, right? You get Marshawn Lynch back. He converts a couple of goal line opportunities, but they were behind all day long in this game, and the run game just never felt like it had that special quality that we were talking about when Brian Schottenheimer joined us here on the Move the Sticks podcast earlier in the season, when they had Carson rolling, when they started getting Rashad Penny rolling. Now look, they were missing Dwayne Brown and George Fant in the last couple of games. They got them back, but they were missing the interior of that offensive line. You remember what Shotty was telling us when he called? It's like, man, we have these powerful dudes inside with DJ Fluker and Mike Iupati, Justin Britt. Britt goes down at the end of October, starting center. He's out for the rest of the season. Iupati misses this game. Jamarco Jones, the backup left guard, goes down early. They're on their 3rd left guard against a good Packers front with Kenny Clark, who was just, he was a monster in the backfield. And then you got the edge guys as well. So, look, I just felt like their run game started to wear down at the end of the season, which put more on Russell. And they just didn't have the rhythm that they had been showing when we were talking about Russell as an MVP candidate. And then defensively, they've got to do some work to figure things, especially pass defense wise.
Yeah, no, this is not the vintage Seattle Seahawks team. But here's what I'm gonna give. I heard Pete's presser after the game. He talked about he feels like this team reminds him of the 2012 team that kind of got it going before it popped, and they became the team that kind of dominated the NFC for about a 3 or 4 year period. When I look at this team, the fact that they won 11 games in the regular season is really amazing when you look at their roster. Defensively, they're not the same defense that they have been, that we're used to seeing. They have Bobby Wagner, but when you really look on their defense, how many of the blue chip players do they have? You say Bobby Wagner, Jadeveon Clowney when he's healthy.
Sure, and now they have to give him a ton of money if they want to keep him.
Yeah, but that's it. There's no one there. And I think what showed up is when you're playing down the stretch in December and into the playoffs, man, you got to dance with your stars. And I just don't know if they had enough stars to give them an opportunity to really be a championship caliber team. That said, I think you have to give the Green Bay Packers credit. I'm looking at the notes here. 10th game this season without a turnover.
Yeah. Most
in the National Football League. Rhett, we've talked about the turnover battle being the biggest deciding factor in who wins games. You win the turnover battle by 1, you win about 64% of your games. So the fact that they don't turn the ball over, they're already playing in the winning margins.
Yeah.
Then Aaron Jones, 21 scrimmage touchdowns, which is one short of Ahman Green's 22 scrimmage touchdowns in 2003. Well, for so long we've talked about, hey, Aaron Rodgers has to have help. He has to have someone in the backfield. Well, Aaron Jones has been that help.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't have a big game, the mere threat of someone in the backfield
he had a big year. Yeah.
that can do something, it changes the outcome. And look, I give LaFleur credit. He continued to give him the ball.
Yeah.
He makes you continue to worry about 33, and that is a huge credit. And so as the Green Bay Packers go forward, I don't know if they're the best team remaining in the tournament, but they're dangerous because in a one-and-done scenario, their quarterback
can get it done. No
and when
question.
you look at who's left in the tournament, between Aaron Rodgers, the only other guy that you could say, like, I would take is Pat Mahomes.
Right. But
That's
he
it.
doesn't have the resume that Rodgers has.
Right. And so in a one and done, if you have to give the ball to someone, I wonder if you trust Aaron Rodgers more than anybody else that's left in the tournament.
That kind of leads me into the next, our next and final point here. It's our NFC Championship Game look-ahead takeaway, which is stop the run and rush the passer. Who does it better in the NFC will win the game. And that is what it will come down to, because both teams want to run the football. Mm-hmm. I mean, make no mistake, they come from the same philosophy.
Yeah, they come from the same cloth.
With LaFleur and Shanahan, they both want to run the football. And with whether it's Aaron Jones and the commitment that they've had, that is something we haven't seen from the Packers in recent years. And then we know, I talked about what Shanahan said. They want 30 runs. They got 47 against the Vikings. So it'll be that type of game. And then if you're able to stop the run, how do you rush the passer? And because both teams can get after the passer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 49ers do it on a little bit different level than the Packers do, I feel like, even though Zadarius Smith has been a monster and an unstoppable sort of problem for offensive lines all year long. This was the best game the 49ers pass rush has had since they beat the Packers in the regular season, which was a total domination and a take-apart of that Packers team. So, to me, it's stop the run, rush the passer, because you're going to be asked to do both of these things, and that's what both these teams rely on.
So this is what has to happen, because like the San Francisco 49ers have kind of become the rough and tumble mauler brawlers in the NFC.
Yeah.
Like, even though whenever you see their uniforms, you kind of think of the vintage 49ers, this is a blue-collar team, a team that kind of beats you up. For the Green Bay Packers to win, the Green Bay Packers have to match and exceed the physicality and toughness that the 49ers play with.
Yeah.
They have to be able, up front at the line of scrimmage, they have to be able to move the 49ers off the ball. And Aaron Jones, the magic number for me with Aaron Jones, the magic number is 20 and 100. He has to have 20 rushing attempts, and he needs to have 100 rushing yards no matter how that's accumulated. Because if he is able to get that kind of production, then it means that the 49ers have to divert their attention off of Aaron Rodgers and focus a little more on the running game, and that should give them some opportunities. And then Davante Adams, to me, Davante Adams has to have a big game. The 49ers haven't been a team that has been prone to use double coverage and double team tactics, and the thing they pretty much play – it's straight. And so if they have an opportunity off play actions to take some of those shots, he has to deliver. And then there's an X factor, a mystery man. I don't know who that mystery man is. Somebody else for the Packers in the passing game.
Yeah, who is it, right?
Has to deliver some
Geronimo?
special.
Is it
Geronimo Allison, Jimmy
Alan
Graham.
Lazard was banged up in the game.
Lazard got hurt.
Yeah.
Somebody else has to show up, because they will not be able to win the passing game with a one-man show.
I'm with you. That's going to be a terrific championship weekend, and I'll be here on Sunday at NFL Network kind of guiding you through that day as well once the games kick off. Excited for that. Excited for the week ahead as it's all-star season. Is a big part of our focus here on this podcast is draft-related, and this is a big week for it. DJ will be back from St. Petersburg tomorrow, joining us from the East-West Shrine Game. Bucky will be back as well, and then we're back with you later in the week from the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. Quick look ahead for that, just to give you a couple of guys, because it's an all-star game that maybe people aren't as familiar with, but there's some terrific players in this game. Brian Lewerke, quarterback from Michigan State, is in this game. By the way, he is the Michigan State career leader in total yards. Besting the likes of Connor Cook.
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins as well. So really impressive guy that I'm looking forward to seeing practice. By the way, also got a quarterback in this game, Nathan Rourke from Ohio University, who actually in 2018 had the highest passer rating in all of FBS under pressure. better passer rating than guys like Tua Tagovailoa, than Kyler Murray in that year. So like, there's some really cool stories in this game that look forward to sharing with you later in the week, and then once we get going from the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I'm excited about the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, but I can't let you go without
what do we got?
Holding your feet to the fire.
Who
do you have tonight in the championship game? You got
that's another game tonight, right?
You got Death Valley. You have the real Tigers versus the other Tigers. I don't know which one you side on, but Clemson, LSU, who do you have?
This is Go Tigers with a Geaux. That is Bayou Bengal Tigers. Give me LSU, too explosive.
My gosh.
Come on. Give me LSU all day long in this game. I hope it's 44-41. As I was talking to one of our other producers, Kent, he thinks it's Clemson 44-41. I look, my sister works for the Texans. She went to LSU. She needs a win this week. It was bad.
Okay.
Morgan, this one's for you. It's LSU.
Little family business. So I'm going to go different because anyone who knows me knows that I don't do the whole support the conference. I don't support the ACC. I don't normally do that. However,
such a rebel.
However, I'm going to deviate from that, and I'm going to say that I'm going to go with the Tigers, and I think experience matters. The fact that,
I get that.
I don't know how you can win 29 games and be 29 games in a row and be an underdog in the national championship game. I don't see how that happens.
The real Tigers, the real Death Valley will win this game.
It pains me to say that I want to hear
Clemson.
that I'm going to go Clemson and I'm going to go Tiger ragging all night long. But I am going with the Tigers. We'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that one. Look, thanks for hanging out with us today. Thanks for listening to Move the Sticks. Of course, back with you again with a couple more episodes later this week. DJ will be back on our next episode. So excited. Big week, big season, big couple of weeks here as we can continue down the road in the NFL playoffs and also as we look ahead to the draft. We'll see you next time.